Hello, everyone. Hi, my name is Tricia Stringer, and I'm here to talk to you about my new book, Birds of a Feather. You'll hear that a bit as we just wait a little while just to get people on board. If you are out there, I would love to hear from you. So please do jot a note in the comments and say hello. So this is a celebration of my new book. So I hope that you've got some of your favourite beverage. I've got mine here ready to go. So whatever it is that you like, I hope you've got it with you. I did want to say a big thank you to Better Reading, to Cheryl and Jane and the gang. Thanks so much for having me take over their page tonight, and how lucky we are that we've got Better Reading keeping us up to date with the latest books no matter what. And hi Jane and Kim and Christine. So I can see that there are a few people out there. That's fantastic. Thanks. I'm glad. Hate to be just sitting here talking to myself. So hi Wendy and Sally. Nice to see you there. So I might make a start then. I'm Tricia Stringer, as I said, and I'm here to tell you about my 14th book, Birds of a Feather. And I'm coming to you from my office in the Copper Coast region of South Australia. So it'd be great if you happen to be wherever you are, if you put that in the comment too, because it's really nice to know where people are. And I just wanted to say also that I'm sort of classing this as the world premiere of Birds of a Feather. So wherever you are, welcome. And shout out to start with to my fabulous publishing team. We're in different states and couldn't be together, couldn't celebrate this one. So I wanted to give them a special shout out and a special cheers. Here's to book 14. Oh, that's lovely. I'm seeing Liz and Maz and Sabine, all from Victoria. Hi, Barb. Thank you. Oh, thanks for purchasing Birds of a Feather. And Lynn in Victoria, Anne in Melbourne and Brisbane, Cairns, some great, and Canberra there. Valerie from Canberra. That's great. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I thought that I would just tell you a little bit about the inspiration for this story, because I do live in a prawn fishing town. So it's one of the main things that happen here. And so I've always wanted to put a little bit of that in the background of a story. And I also wanted to have that involved. So I had another experience of having coffee with my daughter and I out, and sitting next to us was another couple, and we thought also mother and daughter. But as it turned out, and we got chatting to them, they weren't mother and daughter. They were a young woman and her mother's best friend. Her mother had died a few years previously, and they had kept up that relationship. So in the back of my mind, I've got those two things. I've got the prawn fishing industry and that lovely friendship that's a bit different to the normal friendships perhaps that we have with people. And that bubbled away. And when my character Eve came along, that was the perfect thing for Eve, and also to then give her an industry that's not quite so usual for a woman to be in. And so she is she owns a prawn boat in a little town that I have called Wallaby Bay, based on my hometown. No one will ever know, and I know all of you out there won't tell anyone. Hi, Carolyn from Sydney, and Anne from Bendigo, and Julie. Can't wait to read this new book. Oh, so thank you, Julie. Read my book last Christmas, and from Melbourne. Lots of people from Melbourne. Hello, Bev from Adelaide. I had a trip to Adelaide today. It's 2 hours down the highway from me, and had a lovely morning tea with a few readers. So that was a lot of fun. Claire from Sydney. Thanks, Claire. Enjoying my books. I'm glad you do. So I thought I would just tell you a little bit more about the book. As the story begins, Eve, who I've mentioned, has had an accident. She's hurt her shoulder and she's in need of some home help and nursing care. And so she finds Lucy, who's a young woman recently moved to the town. Lucy has 2 young children and a FIFO partner, so she's helping Eve out, and the 2 of them are fairly independent in their own way, but bumbling along quite well until along comes Julia, who is Eve's goddaughter. Julia lives in Melbourne and she's a research scientist, and she has recently had a job end and comes home to Wallaby Bay to catch up with family. So these 3 women are all grappling with different life experiences and some personal loss, and they have to cope with that. For Eve, it's forced retirement. She has to find a new path for herself. She's turned 70, so life is, taking some new corners for her. And for Julia, it's the sudden job loss and also a fear of making personal commitment that sends her home to the comfort of her family. And for Lucy, it's struggling with a young family and a FIFO life and some personal demons, and also that thing that I think mothers everywhere suffer from, and that's mother guilt. So those things all came together to bring these women together. Hi, Julie. Can't wait to read this new book. Thank you. Oh, I think I've already said that. Sorry, I've mentioned you before. Wendy in Wagga Wagga, lovely Wagga Wagga. Thank you. I've been there several years ago, and I love the cover too of Birds of a Feather. So I could tell you a little bit about this cover. People often ask me if I have any say in the cover, and the short answer is no, not really. I write the book that goes inside, and then my publisher and the fabulous people that we call cover fairies come up with this wonderful design. And so if you get one of the books and have a look on the back cover, it always tells you down here who did all the work. And this is a beautiful design by Deborah Bilson, and she did such a great job. And it really does look like what I imagine Eve's house might look like. She lives out of town a little way in an old farmhouse. And my minute direction for this cover was, when it was first shown to me, the garden out here was looking pretty good, and it had a lovely white picket fence. And Eve's not a gardener, and she certainly didn't have a white picket fence, so that got changed. But other than that, that beautiful cover is as it is, and so many people had a hand in it. So thank you to you all for that, because it's certainly turned out well. Hi to Yvonne in Melbourne, and Jenny also in Melbourne. Thanks for joining me, and I hope that you'll be out and about soon and be able to get to some bookshops very soon. Hi Linda and Anne. You've got a copy, that's great. Hope you enjoy it. Hi Kerry Ann from Sydney, and Anne, thank you for a question. Anne Lee is asking me, do I choose the name of the books? In most cases, Anne, yes, I do. And often, even as I'm starting the book, I have the title in my head. And in the case of Birds of a Feather, I did. I knew it was Birds of a Feather right from the very beginning. But sometimes a title just doesn't come to me. So I write with a working title, because I can't bear for it to have no title at all. So I usually have a working title, and then a brainstorm session with people and my publisher. So Joe came up with The Family Inheritance, which was last year's book, and was absolutely perfect for that book. And next year's book we're still discussing. So yeah, sometimes it's easy, sometimes it isn't, but it's always something that I'm very happy with in the end. Thank you. Lynn, hi Lynn. Adding this to your reading stack. I understand the reading stack. I have several of them around the house. Hi Fiona, thank you for tuning in from Melbourne. And yes, isn't it great that at least we can do online? I was lined up this week for several events in Victoria. That was all going to happen, and now not. But anyway, here we are online instead. So I hope that one day soon I'll be coming in person to visit you. Thanks, Edith. I love the cover too. It is very nice. Thanks, Sue. Love your stories and can't wait to read this one. At the Oaks. Okay, so I'm not sure where that is, but sounds good. Thanks, Edith, for buying a copy. And Marg, another book. Yes, I have already sent it off to my publisher for next year, and she's having a look at it now, ready to talk about that together so that we can work on the edits of that. It doesn't have a title yet. Working title, not quite right, so it needs some tweaking. And I'll give you a little hint. It has something to do with a group of women who go along to a fitness class. That's about as much as I can tell you at the moment. Hi, Jane from Sydney. Do I have a favourite book? Gosh, that's a tricky one. I always say that's a bit like asking me to pick between my children, and I always say it's the one I'm closest to. So right now, this is the one I'm closest to, Birds of a Feather. It's the one that's in my head and my heart at the moment. The characters are still very, very important to me, so it has to be the one that I think of as my favourite at the moment. And thank you. Do I have a break between books? I certainly do. So this is kind of a break in that I'm talking about Birds of a Feather, but this is the fun part for me. I love talking to readers, even though in this case we're just doing it online, but it's still the best thing to be able to talk to you, and I hope that you enjoy the book and answer questions if I can. So this is a kind of a mini break, and then over Christmas I take a break with family and have a relax, but all the time the next book is, you know, bubbling away in there, so ready for me to start that early next year, once the idea is fully formed. Edith, living in Cairns, all these online author events have been wonderful to join, and they have, and I can go out and about, but I still, here in South Australia, but I still am tuning into author events because we can't obviously have lots of people come over the border to us either. So it is great, and thanks for your comment. Nilima, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Hi, Tricia, lovely to meet you, you too. And your friends, what wonderful friends you have if they highly recommended me. So I hope that you will get a book soon and enjoy it. Nikki Lee, hi, thank you. And your question is, do I find myself coming up with ideas for the next novel while I'm writing the current one? No, not usually. I'm usually fully immersed in whatever I'm writing at the moment. Occasionally, I guess some little thing might happen and I think, oh, that could be interesting to follow up at another time. So I have notebooks everywhere and jot things in notebooks. But I don't usually try and spend too much time on it because I'm so immersed in the book that I'm writing at the moment or at the time. Thanks, Wendy. Yes, I hope the fitness centre ladies will be fun. Narelle, one of your favourite books is Table for Eight. You read it 3 times. Oh, thank you, Narelle. That is fantastic. And now almost finished Birds of a Feather, and it's your new favourite. I'm glad. Thanks for that. I was talking to some of the ladies about Table for Eight today, and about how much they've enjoyed it to be able to go cruising when obviously we can't go cruising at the moment. So the Table for Eight story has been very popular. Lynn, hi. Have you always enjoyed writing when you were at school? I did, Lynn. I think I've always been a reader and like to write. I wouldn't say I wrote a lot. I think I was probably very verbose. I can remember writing stories and then getting tired of them and just writing the end as a child. But I didn't write any stories that I can now pull out and say, oh, look at this. I did this when I was 10 or something like that. But I have always enjoyed, I suppose, the writing process and enjoyed reading lots of books until I started writing my own. Still love reading lots of books. Thanks, Joy Bell. Hi to you. Thanks for loving my books. I've got this book. Anne is saying, I've got this book and last year's book waiting to read. We'll have them both finished for next year's book. Beautiful. And Joy Bell's in Melbourne. Hi. Anne is asking what my writing routine is. It varies a little bit, Anne, but when I sit down at the start of the year, which is usually February, March, once I've got the full idea for the book in my head and I've got to know the characters and spend a bit of time with them, then I sit down to write, and I'm quite focused on that process for however long it takes. I usually aim for 2,000 words a day, and sometimes I achieve that and sometimes I don't, but mostly that's what I aim for, just to get that first draft finished. And then so that means sort of stepping into my office at about 8 o'clock every morning after doing my jobs, having my breakfast, getting organized. I find that I just need to have a routine where it's as if I'm going out to work, but I'm not. I'm actually staying at home, but in my head I'm in the work zone. So I do that first draft to that, working in that style. And then once I'm into rewrites, it's perhaps a little bit more casual. I'm not quite so strict on myself a little bit. I can even sometimes go to a local cafe and sit in a corner and just work in a corner, or sometimes my husband and I go on short caravan trips, and the caravan becomes my office wherever we are, so I can do that as well. So I can be a little bit flexible, but I do like getting that initial story down first. That's the hardest part. Hi Sue, I do hope you enjoyed the book. And Kim, Table for Eight was my first and I loved it. Have read many more since. Love your writing. Thank you so much, Kim. Louise, do you have a favourite book that you have read? Oh gosh. Well, I'm actually going to be talking about lots of books that I've read on Better Reading at the end of the month. But I just read so many books and I enjoy them all. And I'm just madly now trying to think what have I read just recently. I'm currently reading a new, and I won't be able to remember the author, Alan Carter's new crime novel, which is called Crocodile Tears, and I'm really enjoying that. So I read all sorts, pretty much anything except for horror. I'm not into that, but I read anything. So I do enjoy crime, but I enjoy all sorts. So, oh, Judy, that probably answers your question as well. What am I reading at the moment? Hi, Mark. My favourite authors. I've got lots and lots. I mentioned Alan Carter. I like his crime. Monica McInerney is one of my favourites. I'm always hanging out for her new book. And Fiona McIntosh. Fiona and Monica have both been great mentors of mine, which has been wonderful to have their sort of influence in those early days of writing. And oh gosh, lots and lots and lots. I read all sorts of people, and yes, if you tune in to the Better Reading, what have I been reading later in the month, I'll have my pile then, and I'll be able to go through them with you. Wendy, hi. What did I do prior to becoming an author? I have been a teacher and a librarian pretty much all of my working life. So I've started out teaching junior primary, and then I also trained as a teacher librarian. And so towards the end of my teaching life, I spent more time in that area. So, and also in IT in the school. So I sort of had a lot of strings to my bow, loved it. And I've also worked part-time in a bookshop, so I've done a few different things. My husband and I have also owned one of the earlier back in the early days of post offices in South Australia becoming privately owned, and we owned our own post office for a while. So done a few different things. Linda, hi. We've been chatting via email, so it's lovely to see you here, Linda. Love the family inheritance and love the idea of the next book. Thank you. Fitness centre sounds great. Yes, I think a lot of us go along to those fitness classes. So hope that you enjoy that one. How my routine is, as I explained earlier, is that sort of pretending that I'm going out to work and actually sitting down at my desk and just writing. Really, that's the routine until I get to those 2,000 words each day. Hi, Key. I hope I've said that right. Hi from Perth. And I mentioned earlier which authors I like to read. I'll try and remember a few more as I go along. Thanks, Fiona, for enjoying The Family Inheritance, and thanks for sharing it. Word of mouth really is the best way of getting our favourite books out to other people, isn't it? Hi, Anne and Ilona. Oh, you've just finished Crocodile Tears. No spoilers, please. I'm only halfway through. And Julie, hi. Do you think you'll ever write a book which includes COVID-19 and the lockdowns? Or will your books imagine a better world where COVID-19 never existed? So tricky, Julie, because my books are contemporary and they are set in the current day. So when I sat down to write next year's, or this year's book last year, gosh, I'm getting confused myself now. When I sat down in March last year to write this book, you can all imagine where you were in March last year, and that is just when I was starting to write Birds of a Feather. So I really found that it was quite difficult to be creative in that space of having the media constantly going in the background and, you know, worrying about what was happening in our world. And so I had to be quite disciplined in the end and decide, you know, turn all that off. The world is still here. We're still going to be here at the end of the year, and my publisher wants a book by the end of the year, so I needed to write it. So I had to shut myself away and, you know, just be that little bit tougher on myself in a way to sit down and write. But then I found, yes, that there were little elements of what was happening around us, the pandemic, seeping into my story. And so what ended up happening was, it isn't a book about COVID-19 at all, but I think more about we face all sorts of challenges in our lives, and different things come along that you know, knock us for six sometimes, and change the way we think we're going in the world. And so it's more about how we deal with those challenges in our lives and what that then means for the future for us. And I think that's more the theme that I've gone with in this story. I couldn't help, though, sneaking in a couple of words that just came up time and time again, especially in those early days with the media all of the time. And now when I hear them, they make me cringe. But when you read the book, I hope that you'll have a little giggle, because I couldn't help but slip in unprecedented. And when I hear it now, I just go, oh, I'm so sick of hearing that word. But I just couldn't resist then slipping that into my book. And the other one, which is still used a lot, is pivot. So you'll come across them just in one little patch in the story, and hopefully you'll think that just brought a little smile to your face. Thanks, Ilona, for loving The Family Inheritance. Wendy, books and reading have been quite a big part of my life. Yes, they have, always. My mum was a big reader, and in our house we had bookshelves and lots of books. So always, right from the first things I can remember, my very favourite first book was Peter Rabbit, and I had my own little copy that I always tucked up in bed with me. So I have memories of all those early books. Have always been there. Lynn, it's been fantastic 18 months for new books and so many great Australian authors. Can't keep up with them all, I know. And Lynn, the books just this month that are coming out, fantastic. So my reading pile will be getting higher and higher and higher. Hi, Liz. Do you like doing sequels or prefer standalone? I presume you mean in my own writing. it's tricky, you know. Sometimes books just lend themselves to sequels. My historicals, there's 3, and I thought, as I wrote the first one, I thought I'd finished it, but I hadn't, because I felt the story needed to continue on with the next generation of the family, and then it ended up being a 3rd book with the next generation. So I thought that was important, that they did follow each other, but I wrote them so that they would also stand alone, so that if someone just picked one up, that it would still make complete sense to them and be a, you know, a complete story. And then 2 of my rural romances ended up following each other. Once again, same characters, but a little bit further on in their lives. And then once again, I had to make sure that I did them so that they stood alone, so that once again, if you picked up the second one, it wouldn't matter. It's tricky. You know, I don't like to call them sequels, but it happens sometimes. Yeah. Thank you, Liz, for that. Thanks, Wendy. I hope that yes, the unprecedented does make you shudder, doesn't it? Was with drought, fires, and temperature the same? Yeah. Yes, it did go with that as well. It seems to go with anything that the media wants to ramp up a bit. So it's been lovely talking to you all. I think we've just got a few more minutes to go. So I just wanted to make sure that I've told you everything. I've got a few notes here, and I just want to make sure I've told you everything that I wanted to in this quick catch up with you all. And just to remind you that Birds of a Feather is out there now. If it's not in your local shop, please be kind to them. I'm sure that they are trying to get it out as quickly as they can, but I know a lot of the bookshops have been inundated with boxes and boxes of books. So yes, be patient, but keep asking for it, because it should be there somewhere. So in this story of Birds of a Feather, brings together 3 very different women, Eve, Julia, and Lucy, who on the outset appear to have little in common. Circumstance connects them, adversity tests them, but friendship brings them together like birds of a feather. So I do hope that you will enjoy their story. And I reckon we've got time. I'm just checking the time. We've got time for just a couple more questions. Christine, how do you find working with your editor? Do you feel they enhance your writing experience and books? Most definitely. I have the most wonderful editor called Annabelle, and she does marvelous things. She sends that book back with, or that manuscript back with, just suggestions to make it stronger, to make it deeper, to make it that little bit better. And sometimes it's things that I go, oh yeah, I get that. Why didn't I think of that? And it's just, I guess sometimes you can't see the wood for the trees. So I love the editing process. It's a lot of it's great to be able to finally be able to talk to someone about your book that's not family, and their eyes don't glaze over when you're talking about your book yet again. Rhonda, have read all my books except for the new one. Well, I hope you do enjoy it, Rhonda. And I'm glad you love them all. You love rural romance. Me too. I enjoy it. And yes, we have a lot of great Aussie authors to read. Thanks, Wendy. And yeah, I do hope that you enjoy the book. And thanks, everybody. And thanks to Better Reading for once again having me take over their page again tonight. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. And I hope that you all have a great night. And Reggie, hi, thanks. Yes. And you're getting a signed copy. That's fantastic. And to Edith, my pleasure to share with you tonight. Hi, Parveen, and thanks for joining in. It's been a lot of fun. And happy caravanning. Thanks, Bev. Mostly it is. Occasionally the odd discontent. If you're a caravaner, you'll know I'm not very good at doing those directions for backing into the space. But anyway, thanks everybody, and cheers. Here's to Birds of a Feather. Thanks for having me.